Boxing on the big screen. There is no better metaphor for life than the sport of boxing. And there has been no better backdrop for the big screen than the sport of boxing. Well over 170 movies centering around the sweet science, far greater than any other sport. This is because boxing and prize fighters embody a universal dream of spirit, desire, and sometimes despair, but mainly focusing on what makes boxers the most common and uncommon of all athletes, and that is keep on fighting. Get knocked down, get up. Never give up. Over the years, In This Corner has had the pleasure of sitting down with some of the great actors who have portrayed some very diverse characters in boxing film. Samuel L. Jackson in Resurrecting the Champ, Mark Wahlberg and Christian Bale in The Fighter, Hugh Jackman in Real Steel. Today, we will look at two of the most iconic actors ever to portray boxers in legendary films. Sylvester Stallone of the Rocky franchise and Robert De Niro of the timeless classic Raging Bull.
And once again, hello everybody, and welcome to In This Corner, the podcast. What you just heard was something that I did ahead of Grudge Match, the movie starring Sylvester Stallone and Robert De Niro in 2013, where I was talking about what I've spoken about many times, and that is how popular boxing has always been on the big screen. And it certainly has gone on since Grudge Match. You've had the Creed series that started a few years later. Michael B. Jordan, of course, Stallone, and Michael B. Jordan just won the Oscar for Sinners. And then you had Southpaw that same year with Jake Gyllenhaal. Is it Gyllenhaal or Gyllenhaal? I think it's Gyllenhaal. Sorry, Jake.
I think it's Gyllenhaal.
Okay, whatever it is, he did a good job in that too. And then Bleed for This with what, Miles Teller?
Yes,
was in that, and
even
as recently as last year with Christie, the Christie Martin story, starring Sydney Sweeney, who did a real nice job having to convert herself into that role. And again, when is going to be the next one? When will be the next boxing movie? And how will it come about? And will it be on the big screen like those I mentioned in so many of the other iconic boxing movies, or with streaming services today, maybe it'll be in a streaming service. But there's no doubt there will be one, because as I've said, I know all too many times, boxers, the most common and uncommon of all athletes, and boxing is kind of a metaphor for life and works so well in books and in movies. I think that we might have the answer to that on today's show. And it all came about organically after our last show. And I'll just toss it to the boxing historian, the writer, the author, the CompuBox counter, Lee Groves, to how this all took place or is taking place.
Well, like our last show with Carl Weingarten, which was the result of a Facebook posting by Eric Botcher that led us to Carl Weingarten's video about the Jack Johnson, Tommy Burns thing. I put up a promotional clip from that show in which Carl talked about the rarity and the scarcity of Harry Greb fight films. And one of the people who saw that clip was our guest today, Scott Granville, who for several years has been conducting a sort of a treasure hunt for any videos of Harry Greb in action. And that search has sort of spawned into a movie called Blind Luck, The Search for America's Lost Legend, which is about Harry Greb and his story. And it's also a combination of that treasure hunt that gets thrown in. We'll explain that later. He reached out to me by text, and I told Smitty about it, and we eventually arranged to have this show made to have him explain how he got here, and the script actually is completed. It's been vetted. It's
It's
ready
been
to
read by
go.
you. I went through it, beginning, middle, end, but you dissected it, like, as you are known to do. You
Yeah.
dissected it with a fine tooth comb, and yeah, it's there's already a lot of interest about Greb and this story, and I hope that this will create some more. I hope it finds a home for it, because as a great historian,
Mhm.
and I know as who I am, and being lucky enough to be around, I think maybe the best ever historian in Hank Kaplan, certainly one of them. Hank, I've heard about Harry Greb from the time I was that little boy up there from Hank Kaplan, and all the way till he passed away. So Harry Greb. Well, we're going to talk about that. Blind Luck with Scott Granville. He's Lee Groves. But we're going to welcome aboard a brand new sponsor. You know where Scott is from. He's from Canada, right?
Correct.
And our sponsor is based right out of Canada. I'll let you set it up for Rival Boxing. Go ahead.
Yeah, Rival Boxing Gloves. I mean, I do a whole bunch of research counts from my job at CopyBox, and it seems that every video that I see, Rival Boxing Gloves are being worn by one, if not both, combatants. And we had Russ Anber on our show not too many months ago, and he is the CEO of Rival Boxing. And he was so pleased by his appearance on our show. He just had so much fun that we thought maybe we could reach out to him and see if he could advertise for our show. And
All
guess
right.
what? He has.
Yeah.
And now you're going to about to see the commercials.
Rival this. Back in this corner, the podcast, a buck 84. And this is a subject I smile, because with everything going on in boxing these days, it is so refreshing to look back and talk about one of the great fighters of all time. He is on every legit boxing historian short list as to the greatest fighters of all time, pound for pound. But part of the whole history is the mystery, because we know, by reading, we know by anything we've heard, we know by his record that Harry Greb was brilliant. But what is amazing is we don't have the footage to look at. And I won't name it, but imagine in any other sport, if we're talking about an all-time great that we know is an all-time great, and there's no footage of a Jim Brown, or I know Jim Brown's more recent, but you get the idea. And that's the mystique of Harry Greb. And somebody who's trying to bring that out, and maybe even uncover if there is any footage out there, is our guest, hailing from Canada. Scott Granville joins us. How you doing, Scott?
Very good. Thank you very much for having me. Very excited about this topic. Thanks very much.
Well, you have to be, with all the damn work you've put in it with Blind Luck. Listen, before we get to that, and Lee has a plethora of pugilistic questions about that in the movie to talk about, but I want to talk about you a little bit. Get the folks updated, if you will, where your start in all of this, your background. Take us through, and then bring us to now, as quickly as you can.
Sure, absolutely. I am a journalist student. Back in the day, I got my first TV job in 1988, so I've been in it for a long time. I worked at City TV in Toronto, very iconic place to work. Much Music was just down the road from us, so we worked with them. And I got to get in as a producer, as a sports producer on the weekends. And I was kind of like you, Smitty. I was just a dog for the boxing, and I loved it. I had the opportunity to interview a lot of great boxers very early on in my career. Then I started a soccer show, and then was in a horrific car accident after 8 successful seasons of this show called Direct Kicks. So it was when I was recuperating that I decided to come up with the idea of writing a screenplay about Harry Greb. Now, it was because I was watching TV recuperating and watching Mark Wahlberg brag about the movie he was coming up with, and Ron Howard talking about Cinderella Man. And I thought, I have a better storyline. Everybody that knows the history of boxing knows about Harry Greb a little bit, and I knew a lot about him. So I delved into the idea of coming up with, first of all, betting a friend of mine that I would win an Oscar, not me personally, but the storyline, if it ever got into the right hands, would win an Oscar, because I knew Cinderella Man would probably get some buzz about that. It did, as well as The Fighter. So I just knew that I had a better mousetrap. And I thought that with some work, with some research, and I did a lot of that. Lee, of course, knows that. I met him down at the Hall of Fame. So I talked to all the greatest historians about this man, and it's such an intriguing story. The fact that he has no films available, I thought that was unbelievable.
Or does he?
Here's the thing. Jim Jacobs spent his entire professional career, as we all know, looking for those elusive films. And he didn't have the internet to help him.
Right.
And I just thought that this was, I didn't have the resources of Jim. I wasn't a handball player that could go around the world checking all the right places. What about the places that he wasn't able to look for? And that's the story behind Harry Greb. And then I thought that this would make not only a great feature film, it could make a great TV series, treasure hunt TV series. So we're working on all that. My background, of course, as I've said, is TV. I've created several TV series in Canada, met up with some really great people trying to sell this idea. Robert Watts was my mentor. He was with Star Wars and Raiders of the Lost Ark. He took a hold of this story, as do a lot of people when they hear it, because Harry Greb had a crazy life, didn't he?
Yeah. Well, hold that thought. Because you're getting into a lot of what I know Lee's going to ask you about.
Sure.
And you're familiar with this guy. I think you two first met at the International Boxing Hall of Fame, a place that I know a little bit about, and where you were doing a rapid fire trivia type thing with, I know you interviewed Bert Sugar and Lee Groves. Lee?
Yeah, that's where we met. I was selling my first book at the Book and Memorabilia show at the Hall of Fame, and you came up with your camera and said, "Would you be willing to answer some trivia questions, and would you like to donate a book to our charity?" And I said, "Sure," to both, and the rest is history. But you said that you knew a lot about Harry Greb before you even started this project. How much have you learned about him since while you were working on this screenplay?
Oh, great question. Well, when you're looking at statistics, that's what I knew, the numbers. I knew who he had fought, who he beat, when they fought, the importance of his middleweight title championships. It's the personal stuff that I didn't know. I didn't know much about his background, except for the fact that everyone believed him to be this rough, almost dirty fighter, guy that did a lot of roughhousing, fought a lot, fought 45 times in that 1 year.
Undefeated.
Very rough, tough guy. What I didn't know, when you peel back a few layers, that he was a great family man. He was really tight with his wife and his daughter and his family. I didn't realize he had a really tight affinity to the Catholic religion. Some people thought, there were rumors that he might have been Jewish and that his name, Greb, was actually Berg. And a lot of Jewish fighters at the time, as you know, changed their names. That wasn't true. And many people knew that. But what I didn't know was his closeness to his religion. And that was neat to see. We're in fact talking to the diocese that he was part of in Pittsburgh right now, in the help to search for any kind of information there are boxes that haven't been opened in many years that we're able to search. So we're talking with the diocese right now. It's very exciting. It's an exciting time to talk about the history, especially a guy like this who we don't know much about other than what's printed in several books.
How long did it take you to write this script?
It took me about 3 years just to do the research, and then about 2 years to write it. Now, a screenplay is about 120 to 130 pages. My first attempt was about 250 pages.
Oh my.
And it happens to all writers for their first time writing a screenplay. I've done a lot of writing for TV series, but nothing like this. So it was a challenge to try to take that down and narrow Harry Greb's life down to a small amount was very difficult. And I did it in a certain way. My vision was a slightly different. I really believe in the treasure hunt angle of the missing films. I think that's very important to grab the viewer today. My mentor, Robert Watts, said that too, and that's what I was really pushing. So that's how I developed the idea. His stories is just amazing, and anyone who reads it or knows a little bit about it say the same thing. It needs to be told.
It does need to be told, and I can tell you this: I read the whole thing in one sitting. It was that compelling, and it is that the story is told that well. Was this your first screenplay?
Yes, my first screenplay. Like I said, I've written for several TV series that I created here in Canada. I've written several books, but this was my first screenplay. I do have the rights of other screenplays now because this is kind of a proof that, like yourself, as well as Robert Watts and several other professionals have said very kind words about this. It helps when you have such a compelling story. It's not what I did. I think I did a great job, and I'm proud of what I've done because I did a lot of research. Guys like you and Bert Sugar, Hank Kaplan, indispensable in some of the things and ideas that they gave that I directly used in the screenplay. So those ideas were invaluable. But yes, it was my first screenplay. It won't be my last. And I'm looking forward to using this to launch other things because this is it's such a, I keep calling it compelling. When people hear about what he did and how he, in a lot of ways, manipulated things and made people believe one thing, he was an enigma. He was a lovable rogue. He was a lot of things, and people need to know.
You know, because this is a story about a real person, it's important that one tells it with as much accuracy as possible, especially because boxing fans are very well versed in their heroes' histories and they demand that their stories are told correctly. You spoke about some of the research that you did to ensure that the nuts and bolts of the story are precise as possible. You talked to some historians. Are there any other avenues that you took in order to really tighten the story up?
Well, absolutely. The one thing that just recently, and you always have to look at what you've done, and you always have to be critical of what you've done to make sure that it's perfect. Because I I was there when they did Cinderella Man. It was shot all in Toronto. I know at least a half a dozen people, and you guys do too, that were in that movie. You know Lou Eisen probably pretty well. He's a pretty well-known historian. He was part of that.
I think
So
Angelo Dundee might have been in there. Yeah.
he certainly was.
Yeah.
Angelo Dundee was there, and several other people that I know. So it was really important to take a look at that and see the differences that maybe that we could do because it is a period piece, although my idea is slightly different. You know, lots of different things that you can pick up. One thing that I have just in the last 6 months, which is so important because I mean, I've had the screenplay, but I wanted to shift it, make sure that I did everything right. The Ring magazine now has all the old magazines available online. So for the last 6 months, I've been looking at the 1922, 1923, 1924. I've just finished to 1928 and went through and scoured every little bit where they ever mentioned Harry Greb's name or Tiger Flowers or Gene Tunney, any kind of, and the things that you pick up are incredible. I mean, Tiger Flowers, I was told by Larry Merchant when I told him what I was doing. He said, talk to the Tiger Flowers family.
Mm.
Well, I just found in a Ring magazine from 1924 or 25, I've got it isolated, that it talks about, it's actually a little later, probably 1926, it talks about the Tiger Flowers documentary that was supposedly not shot, but it says right there that it was in the Ring magazine. So those are sort of the sources that I'm dealing with. I'm also in a group. I've stayed away from social media a lot to try to concentrate and get this project completed. But I did get in touch with the people in Facebook, and there's a group from Pittsburgh, the Harry Greb group, that have been instrumental in getting and pushing things in Pittsburgh are really being pushed. There is a Greb boxing gym that's been around for a few years, but they're really pushing the fact that there's a walk of fame that everyone wants Harry Greb to be part of, to be nominated. So there's lots of buzz about Harry Greb.
Do we know how many family members are still around? I mean, this is I think October will mark 100 years he's been dead.
Yes.
Do we know who's around?
There are 2 great-granddaughters that are around, as well as a couple cousins. Conrad Greb is a guy that I've been talking to. He's a cousin, second cousin of, and he's not a direct relation, but there are Grebs there. I do know that Dorothy Greb was the daughter that she ended up marrying into the Goldfarb family. So there are people. The Tiger Flowers family. It's hard to locate them because their family moved to California, and there's
out of curiosity, this just came to me because I was looking at his book research for doing stuff for this show. You ever speak to Peter Heller, the In This Corner, the guy who authored In This Corner, I think, which is one of the great boxing books in history? We actually had him on the show. When was that, Lee? Gosh, years ago.
I think it was like season 2.
Yeah. In that book, In This Corner, where I went to do some research for this interview, is a fantastic one as well. Keep going, Lee. Sorry.
Yeah, this screenplay has 2 major advantages going for it. The first is that it's already registered, and the second is that it has been vetted by a major player in Hollywood. Tell us more about that, and tell us who gave it his thumbs up.
Well, thanks. I met Robert Watts about 7 or 8 years ago. I was part of a company called True Gravity out of Toronto. And what we would do is we would bring screenplays like Blind Luck, as well as ideas for TV series all around the world. So we would go to the Banff Film Festival, as well as the Cannes Film Festivals, and we would talk to people and get meetings. And we met Robert Watts there. And he was looking for a team in North America because it was a North American-driven sci-fi TV series that he had never been involved in anything like it. He was a movie guy. His background was, I think the first movie he did was 2001 Space Odyssey. And then his first production credit was with the Star Wars series, the first 3, and then he did the Raiders of the Lost Ark. And then he became really sick. And he got out of the game after I can't remember the
I know he passed away, I believe, a couple of years ago, I think.
He passed away in September 2024.
Yeah.
And so when he read the script, he was captivated by it because he didn't know much about boxing. He was a sci-fi guy. So that's the big promotion that we got from him, is the fact that I spent 2 or 3 years with him sitting and developing the script. We had people look at it, and the idea is to try to attach it to the right people, a really good director. The people that I was working with at the time had movies themselves, but they were $5 to $10 million films. And Robert, who worked with Star Wars, knew the value of what we had. So he knew that it was something that some big player would jump at if they had the opportunity. We just never have had that opportunity, and we would love to be able to talk to anyone in the industry because we've got it to that level, and we know that there's interest. Just in the treasure hunt idea alone, we have 24 countries looking for the films. You just never know. We believe with more knowledge and interest around the world, people will look in their attic. People will look in their basement. When grandpa passes away, there is just boxes and boxes of stuff thrown out. It happened in my family. When my dad passed away, there's films there. He was an old film guy himself. Of course, it was family films, but the whole concept is Jim Jacobs looked all around the world in the right film places. You never know where these films could be. I'm saying there's a decent chance they're in somebody's attic.
Yeah.
They just don't
So
know
before
what
it goes to Goodwill or to Cracker Barrel, take a look at those films that are somewhere in your shelf somewhere. We're going to take a little break. We'll come back with more. Scott Granville, we're talking about Blind Luck. We're talking about Harry Greb. Back with more right after this from Rival Boxing. Back in this corner, the podcast, once again, welcome aboard Rival Boxing. Lee, I can't wait to see Russ Anver. He's going to be all smiles in Canastota in June, you know?
Right. He's being inducted, and it's a well-deserved enshrinement. He deserves it.
Yeah, you know him, don't you, Scott?
Absolutely. I've done some trivia with Russ back in the day. He is just an icon here in Canada and the world, right? I mean, every time there's a major fight with some of the biggest fighters in the world, he's in that corner, isn't he? He's an amazing guy.
Yeah, and also he's a really good guy. So is Lee, who has awards to prove it. Go ahead, Lee.
Yeah. 2022 Good Guy Award.
You don't have to. You're not given to jactation and braggadocio. Can't you be humble like Smitty?
I'll try. I'll try.
Remember, I don't think I'm half as great as I really am. Now, go ahead before I get worse.
Well, a very big part of this story includes the relationship between Harry Greb and Gene Tunney. And although they met multiple times in the ring, the emphasis
5 times, I think.
The emphasis in your story is on their friendship outside the ring. Can you explain the dynamic between the two of them?
Well, I mean, there's an iconic picture of Gene Tunney at the funeral of Harry Greb as one of the pallbearers. And the quotes that we can see that have come from Gene Tunney since the passing and before, the descriptions from Gene Tunney of his times in the ring with Harry Greb, you could tell that there was something different going on other than just the rivalry. So that's why I put into the screenplay, into the storyline, a friendship there to help tell the story and bring it along, especially the film part. I really, because of my background in film and my belief that the missing film for me is so mysterious because, especially you go on YouTube and you can see every single one of his, most every single one of his rivals. Even well before Harry Greb's career, you see Tommy Burns fight, you see Jack Johnson fight, you see Jack Dempsey before. So you wonder why and how, and there are explanations as to why the films aren't there, but it's still, to me, it's an amazing part of the storyline, and that's why I believe that Gene Tunney, as well as Jack Dempsey, were convinced that they were going to make money as film people outside of the ring when they retired. So they were encouraging in a lot of way Harry Greb to do the same. And I've got that's been proven by what I've read in the Ring magazine from 1922 through to 1926. There are articles all over Ring magazine's editions that have that prove that Harry, as well as Tunney, as well as Dempsey, got up on stage a lot and performed. And that's what I put as part of the dynamic of the plot of the story.
Yeah. After having read your screenplay, it is clear that there are two objectives that you wanted to achieve. The first is to tell the story of Harry Greb's life and times, and the second is to spark interest in a treasure hunt of sorts for his long lost fight films. And in order to incorporate the treasure hunt aspect of the story, the movie goes back and forth between the 1920s and the present day. But as we are speaking, you have been engaged in a real life search for his fight films. You mentioned that it has spread to over 24 countries, you said.
Yeah.
And how has the search been going? I think you released a video where Harry Greb could be seen in the background working
Right.
out, for
Right.
instance.
It's been great. And it's the Facebook group that really helped me do this. I came in late to this group. I introduced what I was doing to them, and and they said, "Hey, listen, we have people on the ground in Pittsburgh that are really interested in this, and they can help." And this is a twist that you guys will love, because I have to use and hire this. I've been doing this all my career, hiring crews all over the world. So now I go to Pittsburgh, and who do I meet through this group is Rick Zivick.
Oh,
And yes, he's now I'm not going to be able to give you the exact relation, but I think he's a great nephew of Fritzy, and his
right.
nickname is Fritzy, and he's in the television industry. So we're going back and forth, and I've been pushing him the idea now that I have his contact, because he has contacts with History Network, and we've talked to people and creators of The Curse of Oak Island, which is a very popular TV series that's been running for a dozen years. And so we know exactly where we want to place, if we have the TV series about it, on a Paramount, on a History Network. It would fit perfectly in their treasure hunting, vision of
Right
what their
next to Jimmy
network's about.
Hoffa's body, maybe.
Exactly. Yeah,
You,
no
you,
kidding.
you know, there again, I think it's so I don't believe in coincidences. I think everything happens for a reason. You just got to know how to connect the dots. When people say that's amazing, like the Zivic thing that you just mentioned, I just think it's so interesting that what we're so intrigued about is what we can't see or what we haven't seen yet, and that is apropos for a guy who couldn't see himself that well. There were different rumors about Greb with his eyes, and I mean, one I've heard is that he actually fought, with a phony eye, but I don't think that was true. I think the eye came. My guess is that came after his career.
Yes.
What have you uncovered on that, if anything?
Yeah, that came after his last fight with Tiger Flowers, and he showed up at the Dempsey Tunney fight with a patch on his eye, and he never told anyone. But when he passed away, his doctor, Dr. McGurvin, admitted that he had his eye taken out and it was replaced with a glass eye.
Glass eye,
and,
yeah.
And then people said, "Oh, he was fighting with a glass eye." No, he never fought with a glass eye. He wanted to.
Yeah.
He wanted to.
Yeah. We'll get into this in the last segment with Lee and I think that part of that frenetic style was maybe because he had when you have a disability, sometimes it brings out all the best in your other abilities. I think that might have been the case. I know, Lee, you have a few more questions.
Yeah. One is, do you believe in your heart of hearts that this search will be successful? Will we find Harry Greb footage?
Yes, I think we will, because I think that you can get it if you get it into the right hands, because I don't have a social media platform. We don't have a big enough platform. You get it on the big enough platform, there'll be more people watching. See, the Oak Island show that was going for 12 years have 5 treasure hunters. We can have 50 million. And
so it's more about awareness.
Yes.
People thinking about it, because number one, that's a long time ago. And then none of the usual suspects ever, because I have some of my own stuff. And, I remember years ago when I got some of this stuff that I ain't going to talk about, I looked and I didn't see any Greb stuff. So, but I think you're right. It's about the awareness of it. I think that, an obstacle is an inspiration. I think even the search for it is a success. Just the fact that you're doing it. For me, though, what's most important is that you get this story out there about Greb. But go ahead, Lee.
Well, this is certainly there's a time and a place for everything. And as Smitty had mentioned, it's been 100 years since his passing.
Yeah.
So that's a very nice round number for something like this to come to the forefront once again. When, after all this research about Harry Greb, do you have a vision of what Harry might have looked like in the ring?
I've talked to yourself as well as other experts about it for many years. Yeah, I would say put a combination of people is the best. I think people look at Lomachenko's footwork was so great, and you look at it, it's like that is Harry had the best legs in all of boxing's history. That I really believe that his footwork did everything, and then his arms, right? So the combination of things, he was like an Aaron Pryor, a Henry Armstrong, and even a Pacquiao. Because the thing is awkwardness. It is shown that throughout the history of boxing, awkwardness wins when you're great. Right? So Pacquiao, Henry Armstrong did things that no one else would do. Well, crank it up by 5, because that's what Harry Greb did. And that's why he didn't have a lot of knockouts. He could knock you out if he sat down on his punches. He just never did. It wasn't advantageous to his style. His style was throw 10 punches, get out. That's why a lot of people think Dempsey would have a lot of trouble based on all the facts that we know about their sparring matches. And yes, we did. I'll get back to this, what you said before, Lee. We did find 6 seconds, and that's from the guys from Pittsburgh, Ross Scumaci. Way to go, Ross. He found 6 seconds of training viz that some experts have said, hey, that's not him. But you know what? It looks exactly like him, and it stirs the pot. People are getting mad that we're doing this. And it's like, no. What it's doing is creating a furious love for and passion for not only finding the films, but finding more about Harry Greb.
How much artistic interpretation did you take in the screenplay? You have to take some, or it's not going to be. I mean, even Rocky had moments that were a little exaggerated, let's say. So how much artistic interpretation did you take?
That's really, I love that question. I love it because I tried to make zero for facts of his career. I never exaggerated a single thing. I didn't call him the light heavyweight champion of the world. He was the American light heavyweight champion. I never exaggerated any of that. What I did was to tell the story. I made up characters that may exaggerate slightly, but nothing about. I made sure that the legendary stories that may not have happened were still told, but we made sure that the caveat, you know what, that probably didn't happen, but it lends to this incredible legendary story.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm sure that when you began all of this, you had an ultimate vision for how you wanted it to turn out. What does that vision look like, and how close to becoming real is it?
Well, the vision, I didn't think right away that I thought that the vision was to get Harry Greb's name an Academy Award. Like, I didn't brag that I was going to win one, but that his story would win one if it was in the right hands. I didn't really think, I thought it was a little outlandish about the films, but important. I just didn't think that we would have the chance to find them, because I was in a car accident. I did nothing, zero, for social media. And it was what I thought was the thing that was going to do it. And I couldn't do it. I'm just a TV guy. So I'm lending this idea to the world so that we can all do it together. Because I think That's, in the end, it's the films. The story itself should, based on history, get a ton, if you get the right people involved, get a ton of buzz for an Oscar or awards. But it's the film, so that we can get it to the friggin' family and to the Hall of Fame. They deserve it. The world deserves to see it, right?
Right.
That's what we want. We want to see how great he was. And I believe if we do, it could change the history of the sport. That's the difference between Honus Wagner, a card that's worth a lot of money, and Harry Greb's films. Honus Wagner's card, just the only history it is historical amount of money for a card. Harry Greb's films will change the history of the sport.
Mystery elevates history, and in this case creates mystique. Listen, the best thing you ever did was stay away from the frickin' social media, because that would have been a disaster. I guarantee you your friend Watts and anybody will tell you, when I wrote my movie story that my daughter Megan helped me put in, I have all the scenes, but I have not done what you did, which was put it into a screenplay. And boy, oh boy, did I hear that from so many. Smitty, it sounds great. Screenplay. Smitty, sounds fantastic. Screenplay. Smitty, it's screenplay. But the focus that I went to Georgia, to the mountains, to LJ, and wrote it, getting away, that solitude. You have to really get away to find something. So you probably getting away in that isolation and not hearing all the bullshit in boxing, it was probably really important. What did you learn about yourself in this process?
I was very surprised that I had the ability to do it, because my first attempt, after all the research, was twice the size of a screenplay. And I'm looking at the number of pages going, how do you whittle this down? It's almost impossible. But the one thing that I've learned about myself is the persistence. I'm really good at persistence on a storyline, knowing full well that that this has so many legs, that if it gets to the right people, the story itself is so good that something great can happen. We could find the films, and that could be the ultimate, not only telling the story and having the world know about them. Kids need to know about them. Kids that love boxing today that don't know the old guys need to know the old guys. And this is probably the best story out there for sure.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to put a page up at the end where people can get a hold of you, and get in contact with you for whatever reason it might be, somebody interested. I think with the preponderance of streaming services out there, to me, when I think Greb, I think big screen. That would be, but I'm old school, and I know now that Hollywood is not what it once was, and I don't think it ever, much like boxing, Hollywood's not what it once was.
Yeah.
But that opens up some of our greatest things we've seen, even like a Breaking Bad, was on the streaming services. So I think this could be and will be. I really believe that it will end up somewhere and somewhere very, very soon. Is there anything else you'd like to end with?
Well, I'm excited because of the relationships we're building with Pittsburgh alone. Pittsburgh had $300 million in TV and film last year. We want to add to that. Yeah. There are so many great scenes and places that we can film that we've already checked out. That's what we want. We want to go there. We want to make sure that we do this story right. We just need partners, and we know we have a lot of people that are interested in this particular storyline. Hey, really appreciate your time that you've given me to tell this story, because I think we all know it's pretty important in the history of our sport.
Yeah, there's few names that, and it's amazing that the name Greb has as much gravitas as it does still to this day. And when I look at when I'm smiling, because I'm thinking about his face, if there was ever Lee and I talk a lot about, and we're going to do an entire show on faces in boxing, not who's the face of boxing, but faces and what they mean. But when you think pugilism, when you think boxing, when you think the most common and uncommon of all athletes, there's no better face for that than Harry Greb, the Pittsburgh windmill. Blind luck. I think it's coming soon to something near all of us. Scott Granville, thanks for joining us, and we'll get you back on again, and we'll be drinking some champagne soon, hopefully over your project.
I really appreciate that. Of course we are. That'll be fantastic. Can't wait.
All right, we're going to take one last break, and we'll come back with more, even what Stallone thinks of Greb.
In grudge match, I've seen this over and over again, the rubber match, yours got to take place. I get the feeling if Sugar Ray Robinson was here now, he'd be 92 just like Jake. I would imagine they'd want to fight for a seventh time. Why is it that with fighters, it's just the score is never settled, Robert?
Just isn't. You want to come back and try and win the next time if you've lost before.
And I think there's been some really crappy decisions. For example, my favorite fighter is Harry Greb.
From Pittsburgh.
The best ever. Guy fought his last 10 fights. Last 100 fights with one eye. He never told anybody. He beat Gene Tunney to a pulp, and then after that, they wouldn't let him win anymore. In New York.
Tunney's only loss.
He trashed him. He broke him to pieces. Then he beat him again in New York, but he said, you're never going to win in New York, because he was a villain. And again, things like that. I always thought that so he would fight, and the reason I bring Greb up 8 times, 7 times, these guys, he played them every 3 weeks.
So that was Sylvester Stallone talking about Harry Greb. You could see the admiration that he had for him and the curiosity that he had for him. Again, that was at the 2013, the grudge match ahead of it when I was doing the promotion for that. And fast forward a couple of years to Creed, when I interviewed Stallone before the first Creed, there was a situation, I think I told it on the last show, where he left the room and came back, and we spoke about Harry Greb, and he was saying that he wondered how today's crowd, today's folks would react to a Harry Greb, and in particular the boxing people. And I said, well, we know the boxing people would love it, a story about Harry Greb, a movie about Harry Greb. As far as the rest of the public, they'd have to be educated, but what better way to educate them than with somebody as powerful as you and the way your stories go. That would really do a great job of that. I think there will always be the curiosity for Harry Greb. There's so much out there now, but I think with this, timing is everything, isn't it? And I think with it being the 100th year, I think October 22nd will be the 100th year anniversary of his passing. He was only 32 years of age. I really think that there could be some real interest in this. I get excited just thinking about it and thinking about my friend Hank Kaplan and what he would think about it. And but we talk about Greb. Tell the fans that don't know, a younger fan watching this show, set him up, if you will, by the numbers.
Yeah, as you said at the top of the show, every credible historian ranks Greb somewhere in the top 10 pound-for-pound fighters who has ever lived. And that's because of the depth and breadth of his record. According to BoxRec, at least. The numbers vary, but according to BoxRec, Harry Greb fought 301 times. That's like 7-8 careers today in today's world. And his record, according to them, is 265 wins, 19 losses, and 17 draws. Of course, if you look at the Ring Record book, there are a whole bunch of newspaper decisions, which during that era, they wanted to discourage betting, so they didn't have official results, but the newspapermen at ringside would come to a consensus as to who really should have won the fight officially. So that's the newspaper decision era that is often spoken about at that time. But the fact that he died young, at 32, the fact that he had this frenetic style, and the fact that he beat 16 Hall of Famers, which is a record among all boxers. He fought middleweights. He fought light heavyweights. He fought heavyweights. He beat them, and a lot of times he knocked them out just by the sheer volume and speed.
And he did something during that time with the color line that wasn't being done.
Very much so. He fought the black opponents. He fought very good black fighters. He had no qualms. He just said, put them right in front of me, and I'll knock them down. And if they knock me down, good on them. That means they were better, and they had to be better to beat the quality of fighter that Harry Greb was. The thing that really grabbed me about Harry was how he was described by those who actually saw him fight. One said that he fought like a bear cat. In one fight report on BoxRec, it said for 5 rounds, Greb did everything that was possible without having a manslaughter charge against him. He fought like a combined human dynamo and an enraged tiger. Greb was ever jumping and rushing and appeared like a human jumping jack in action. And one description that really grabbed your attention described Greb as having buried his opponent under a blizzard of flying leather. I mean, if we were to equate Greb's style to someone that has been widely seen, I think Scott mentioned Aaron Pryor and Henry Armstrong. That's pretty good. But we made reference to your eyes, Smitty. And of course, we're handicapped by the fact that we haven't had any film of him in actual action. But based on what you've read and based on the research that you've done in preparation for this show and over the years as well, what do you see when you hear the name Harry Greb?
Yeah, I think that he must have appeared to his opponents that he had more than 2 arms, and 2 fists. He must have come across like an octopus, like a spider, just a pugilistic buzzsaw on steroids. I mean, that's the and he wasn't using steroids, but that's how I'm just thinking of a buzzsaw. And we have to mention an Aaron Pryor, and I think Scott mentioned Pacquiao, and there's all kinds of fighters we could name that threw a lot of punches, that did a lot. But I also want to incorporate, the name Roberto Duran, who was Roberto Duran, of course, was a great technician, but he also could do so many different things on the inside. And, I don't want to mention too many guys of today. And I'm going to throw out one that this will be weird to the public because he doesn't throw, a lot of punches, really. Bernard Hopkins, because of the unsavory stuff that Bernard got away with. And there's no doubt that Harry used everything, not only the arms and the elbows and the fist and the thumb, and with those gloves back then you could
shoulders,
use the thumb
knees,
and the head. I think he mastered doing anything and everything that he could, or everything and anything that he could to win fights. And obviously too, he had that Joe Calzaghe motor, that he could go on forever. Tremendous endurance, tremendous stamina, the ability to take tremendous punishment. That would be Gotti-esque, if you will, being able to take tremendous punishment and come back. And again, all really doing it throughout the career. 13 years he fought, I think, like with one eye, most of it. It's just an amazing thing that I don't know if we'll ever get to see it, but I hope this show here, and more importantly, what Scott's doing with Blind Luck, will lead to people understanding there's a reason why my dear friend Hank Kaplan, Bert Sugar, Lee Groves, and yours truly think that this guy was just the fact that we all have him on this pugilistic pedestal and we haven't hardly seen anything is truly, truly amazing. And I want to thank Scott and wish him the best of luck. Anything final to say, Lee?
If you're looking at just sheer title defenses, I think he only had 3 official defenses of the title between when he won the title in 23 and lost it in 26. But the hallmark was just how active he was. We mentioned the fact that he was 45-0 in a single year. That's a record. But between the time he won the title and when he lost the title, he fought 58 times. And he went 51-5-2 during that time. And his opponents included light heavyweight champions like Tommy Loughran, Jimmy Slattery, Maxie Rosenblum. He fought Mickey Walker, as well. He fought Gene Tunney.
Hey, he fought Mickey Walker and had a rematch with him right away at the Silver Slipper about a few hours after the fight.
Yeah, and I remember during my ringside rapid fire session with Scott, he mentioned who won the fight, and I thought, okay, well, I knew Greb won the fight officially, but in the street, it depends on who you ask. There's conflicting accounts as to exactly who won that fight. But he also fought Slapsy Maxie Rosenblum. He was a light heavyweight champion. And he fought a lot of these high-grade guys multiple times.
Yeah.
And it is just the depth and breadth of his record that makes historians like me and so many others to hold him in such high regard. And that's why his story has to make it on the big screen, little screen, any screen. And we hope that it will happen.
Harry Greb, Blind Luck. So long, everybody.